And there are many more values, right? There's the R squared and T, and I'm not going to get into those. But just with p-values, if you get a p-value, and you'll see it in papers, that is nice and low, that means you found a connection. What you're holding is actually gold. Hello, Guthrie here. I'm here today to talk about economics, and I've talked about economics in the past, but this is just a general what can economics actually do for you, or what can't it do, and what are some good places to use it, and what can it tell you and what can't it tell you. I've talked, in the past about how economics is not perfect, how, when the financial collapse happened, a lot of people said, economics is useless, or that it's flawed. And I of course say, well, it's a young field and it's not perfect and the data is not perfect, so you can only be as good as what the data is. But that aside, I want to kind of move past that and to broader pictures about when to use economics and what it can be useful for. So the first analogy I want to have to use to have you think about this is, imagine that you are trying to find gold. That's your goal, is I want to find gold. So the first thing you need to know is where should I dig for the gold. So in much the same way, economics can help you guess where to look. It won't tell you for sure that you have to, look right here. This is 100% for sure going to be a gold mine, but it can help point you in the right direction. So if you're looking for gold, you're not going to know exactly if you have it until you dig. But using various tools, you can say, I bet you if I look over here, there's a good chance that we'll find what we're looking for. And so that's the first thing economics can help you do, which is to spot patterns and figure out maxes and mins. And then from there, you can basically figure out, let's try this here at this point, and I bet you it'll work. So here's a very simple, real life example. So imagine that you are trying to sell more products, and you want to make more money. Now, if you decrease, so the question is, instead of finding gold, your gold in this case would be, what is the right price to set my product at to maximize sales, to maximize revenue? And so that's a difficult question, and you're not going to know for sure, because the world is not a simulation. So you're not going to know that if I set the price at, let's just say, $1.20, that's going to sell the most product and make the most money. If I set the price higher, I make more money per sale, but then I might have less sales. If I set the price lower, then I'll have more sales, but I might make less money per sale. So there's this perfect, what in economics we call the maximum, right? Where as you raise the price, you make more money, but then as you continue to raise the price, you sell less product and you actually make less money. So there's a magical spot somewhere. Now, because this is the real world, much like digging for gold, you don't know exactly for sure what the right price is until you try it. But economics, you can use economics to help you guess, or it's really more than a guess, it's an educated guess. This is what you should try. So a very simple example, we tried to figure out how should we price our courses, right? We want to price it high enough, but that they'll sell, but low enough that people will, other way around, low enough that people will buy them, but high enough that we can still make a lot of money. And so one of the things we did is we looked at all the past data, not from our course, but we actually gathered data from other popular courses that existed at the time. I mean, this was years ago, and the market has changed. But years ago on a platform called Udemy, they had all sorts of different courses. And so we looked at, I did a little simple calculation where I found what courses had sold the most and what their price points were, and then how long was each course. And I could figure out, using very simple modeling, that the optimal price per hour of lecturing, right? Because some courses are really big, and so you'd expect those to cost more, and some courses are short and they should cost less. So you can't just go by overall price; you have to go by price per hour. And so using that, I was able to come up with a simple formula to say, hey, if the course is 5 hours long, it should be this price to maximize revenue. And we used that to fairly good success, I would say. And it's not perfect, and over time we have to change our model, we have to change our data, and blah blah blah. But so that's the first key thing that economics can be very useful for. So if you are trying to find something, if you're trying to find an answer of what should we do, or what price should we set, where should we know it needs to be somewhere, right? We're looking for gold. We know we need to look somewhere. We could just randomly dig holes, but that's not very efficient. So economics helps say, hey, try digging here. You'll probably have good results. You may not, and then you have to go back to the drawing board, but that's a good place to look. So that's like the first big idea concept that economics can help you with. So if you're trying to find where to dig to find your little gold kernel, that's a good economics is a very useful tool to help guide you to find those answers. So that's the first one. The second way it can help is to verify what you have or have not found. So once you dig things out of the ground, right? Let's say you have a thing that you think is gold. How do you know that it's gold? And so economics can help. It helps with probability to help you make sure that what you're looking at is actually valuable gold and not fool's gold. So that's the second part. So I want to spend the rest of this talk talking about that second half and what is known as P, which is an economics thing you'll see in a lot of different economics papers. But one quick thought that will tie into everything, which is that economics is only as good as the data that it uses. So as I used to have a boss who used to tell me, garbage in, garbage out. So if you're feeding it garbage, you'll get garbage will come out of it. So if you have an economic model, and you got to set it up, you got to set the model up correctly, which is very hard to do. But even if it's the most beautiful, perfect, awesome, accurate economic model ever put together, if the data you're feeding it isn't accurate, you're not going to get accurate results. So one of the hardest things to do is get good data, and data that's not skewed, a data that's not missing critical pieces of information. And when you put that together with a good economic model, then you can get a good outcome. But if either of those are wrong, if you're missing important data, either because the model doesn't account for it, for example, a lot of economists right before the big financial crash, they didn't see the crash coming. It's because they, in their head, they weren't including very important data, which was that, that the housing market was in this huge bubble. And so they couldn't see the drop coming. But if you had a market that maybe predicted that if you have the highest level of housing ever, and then an increasing level of delinquencies, that you were going to see a bubble crash, maybe today we could put that together. But back then they didn't have the right data, they didn't have the right model, and so they got the wrong result. And economists did not see, or many economists did not see, that there was going to be a big recession, big housing crash, which in fact happened. So that's the first part. So let's talk about the second thing. I've dug in the ground and I've pulled out this nugget, and I want to make sure that this is gold. How can I verify that something is true or real? And it is hard because there's always a chance that it's random luck, and that's exactly what the P variable is. So let's illustrate this point with a simple coin flip. And let's just say that my hypothesis is that the coin is rigged. So if the coin is rigged, that means it won't be random. It means that every time I flip, it'll land on heads, for example, because the coin is rigged. Now, if I flip the coin and I get 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, well, then the coin is not rigged. So how do I know? How can I demonstrate, at least scientifically, that the coin is probably rigged? Well, you use a p-value. So let's say I'm going to flip the coin, and I'm going to look at my example right here. So it lands on heads twice in a row. That's data in the direction of our hypothesis. But you could get that result with a normal coin. So our p-value is maybe 0.5. Now, the p-value is the probability that an event is random chance. So a p-value of 0.99, it goes between 0 and 1. So a p-value of like 0.99 means it's almost certainly random chance that what you're seeing is not a pattern, but it's just random noise. Okay, random noise. So like, for example, the letters, the numbers of pi would be random, random noise. They just kind of go and go and go and go and go. Or the static on a television, right? There's no picture. It's just random. That's a very high level of p. What a very low level of p means, for example, 0.05, also called a p-value about 5%. That is the chance that what you're seeing is actually, again, random noise. So if it's 0.05, that's 5%. That means that there's only a 5% chance that what you're seeing is random noise, and a 95% chance that what you're seeing is some sort of pattern. It is a for example, in our coin flip condition, the coin is rigged. Now, there's a 5% chance that the coin is not rigged, that it's just random chance, but there's a 95% chance that what you're seeing is actually a pattern. So this is how economists, science in general, comes to the idea of what is true, what is random, a random sequence. And we've talked about random walks, where you could flip a coin heads 20 times in a row. It is possible. It's just very, very, very unlikely. But you can't really ever know for sure, so you have to just kind of put a line in the sand. So let's just say we flipped heads, right? And then, it's probably just random. Now, let's say the next 10 flips of a coin we do are heads. Every single one. The chance that you'd flip heads on a random coin is very, very, very small. So our p-value is about 0.01, or about 1%. Because 10 flips of heads in a row, it's possible, but it's very, very unlikely. Okay? So 20 head flips in a row. Okay? That's really, really, really unlikely if you flip a regular coin 20 times in a row. So that's a probability of about 0.001%. So there's still a chance, but it's just really, really, really small. Now, let's say that we just keep going, right? If you flip 30 heads in a row, the chance now is just astronomically small, right? 0.0000001%. So, and you can keep going. There is a truth to the fact that, so it's, when I say, it's always sunny in Philadelphia, okay? Mac always says, with God, all things are possible. And it's mostly a joke. But there is a truth to the fact that, even the smallest of odds, it is possible that it's random chance. There is a possibility. But it's much, 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 much more likely that, in fact, your coin is rigged. That's why it's flipping heads every time you're seeing the pattern. Because it doesn't, if it was random, you would hit a tail at least a couple times. So scientists, to determine whether something is real or not, they do have to have a line in the sand. And so they usually use about 5%. So if you hit that 0.05 p-value or 5% p-value, scientists will generally regard that as you found a pattern. So in economics, let's just say that you're looking for systematic racial bias in police arrests, okay? And so you run your regression to do some econometrics data, and it comes back, and what you have, assuming you've done it correctly, is you have a p-value of 0.045, okay? So right under that 5% mark. In your paper that you publish, you would say that you found something real, and you'd get to put a little star. It's a little asterisk next to that value, because that means it's statistically significant. So the generally accepted statistically significant mark is that 5%, that 0.05 p-value. So if you get a p-value of under 5, like I said, there's a 95% chance that you've actually found a pattern. And if you've actually found a pattern, then you can go ahead and say, hey, I found a pattern, it's real. I'm going to present my findings. If you don't have that under 5%, oftentimes you found something interesting, but it's probably not scientifically conclusive. And you have to work and refine your results until you can figure out, eliminate more noise to get to that beautiful p-value. So that's one asterisk. If you get 2 asterisks, that's usually under a 1%, right? So if you got like under a 1% p-value, you get 2 stars. That's really statistically significant. And then if you get under, I believe it's 0.001 p-value, which is a 1/10%. So there's a 99.9% chance that you found something. You get 3 stars. That's usually the highest they go. They don't go higher for more extreme measures of p-values. But if you get 3 stars, you're definitely seeing a pattern. Now, whether that pattern is what you say it is, that's another question. But statistically, mathematically, scientifically, you found a pattern. For example, days that end in Y. Okay, you're going to get a p-value of 3 stars because all the days end in Y. So if you charted all the days and you ran a little regression, you get your p-value would be basically 0 because all your data matches. So p-value is how you can tell is what I have gold or not. So I've collected data and I want to see if my data is really the hypothesis that I set forward. And I'm not going to get into the math, but if you run, you can use economics to give you a p-value. And there are many more values, right? There's the R squared and T, and I'm not going to get into those. But just with p-values, if you get a p-value, and you'll see it in papers, that is nice and low, that means you found a connection. What you're holding is actually gold. So good job. So those are the 2 main ways that you can use economics to help. I hope this video was somewhat useful, but hopefully it can, if you don't have any exposure to true economics, those are really the 2 big ways that you can use economics to find answers. The first, again, where should I look? Where's a great place for me to look? And then I think I found something. How do I know if what I have found is random noise, aka dirt, or something useful, aka gold? Thanks for watching, and we'll be back very soon.